This video is by SnailOXD. Here is the link here in the Twitch side of things. If you're on YouTube, it'll be in the description down below. We have never watched this person before, so it would be in your best interest, so I don't hate you and consider you a smelly piece of garbage, if you liked and subscribed to this wonderful person right here, who is going to be the subject of our react video today. The subject ergo being that why is DBD so toxic, and an exploration of toxic video games as a whole. Like I said, this content is made by somebody else, so this content is made possible by someone else, so you should go support the official release of said content by hitting the like button, doing the subscribe thing, or else you're a big stinky person and I hate you so much. So yeah, let me know if he's too quiet compared to me talking, because I don't want that to be an issue again.
Dead by Daylight community is toxic. You've no doubt heard this about the game at some point. In fact, before I started playing it, it was the first thing I knew about it. Everyone I knew—
I'm going to say this. Opening statements. I'm going to say this. Opening statements right here. Compared to other games, no. Compared to every other, like semi-serious game I've ever played, whether that be FPSs, MOBAs, the only like competitive zone I've been in that hasn't been more toxic than DBD has been fighting games, where people are actually, for the most part, pretty respectful. And if somebody's like, toxic, everybody kind of laughs at them and thinks they're cringe. But like, MOBAs like League and Dota, way more toxic. FPSs like Siege, COD, way more toxic, way more toxic. When I you know what's funny? I don't remember the last time I've reported somebody for saying something awful in after chat to me. Like, generally, there's a lot of people just being generally toxic. Like, be like, oh, I'm just being a sore loser. It must have been nice to, like, try so hard. Blah, blah, blah. Like, people just being whiny, right? I get a lot of that in DBD. But I don't remember the last time I actually, like, reported somebody for saying something, like, off the wall and mean and horrible. But I do that, like, once a day. In the other games, like in like MOBAs and FPS, I do that like once a day, if not more, where I'm reporting somebody for saying something like a slur or a death threat, something like that. Like, DBD is not that bad by comparison. It's really not. And I feel like we just like live in our little DBD bubble, so we're just convinced that DBD is the worst there can be. So that's not true.
Who spoke about it said the same things. The community is awful. Survivors are mean. Killers play unfairly. While I'm no stranger to toxic gaming communities, what I heard about Dead by Daylight felt different. For one, I guess I didn't consider Dead by Daylight a very competitive game. It always came off—
Because it's not. It's a party game at its heart. It's really not. Because it's not.
Off as a party game to me, and in fact that's how I play it these days. Second, the ire of the community wasn't aimed at the devs, it was aimed at each other. Everyone's always complaining about teabagging survivors, face camping killers, tunneling, whatever that is, broken hitboxes, and horrible code. This doesn't happen in other video games whatsoever, so understandably I was a little intimidated to try the game. So imagine my surprise when I logged in to play for the first time, and not only was there no apparent toxicity, players were kind and playful. Survivors were definitely teabagging their balls off, yes, but those same survivors were often rather nice in the in-game chat. I thought, hey, maybe everyone is wrong about this game. Maybe they're just overreacting. It's almost like with the DLC. It's almost like with the DC conversation, which was a very disliked video of mine. Hi, hello. It's almost like just because somebody does something in a video game, it doesn't mean they're inherently a bad person. You weirdos. Just because somebody DCs out of a game doesn't mean they're a bad person. Just because they teabag once in a game does not mean they're inherently a bad person. Why is your ego so fragile? They're like, you control me. Like, why is that your response? Why do you baby rage? Just go beat them up. It's a versus game. If they're teabagging you, go tunnel them out. If they teabag, go tunnel them. Go do something about it. Right? If the killer's smacking you on hook and face camping the one guy, gen rush him out and then leave so he only gets a 1K. Do something about it. Don't be like, I guess he's a bad person in real life. Like, just win. Take the W away. Do something about it. From over a decade of religiously playing Call of Duty,
yeah,
this was a breath of fresh air by comparison.
Let's go.
12-year-old screaming racial slurs
the
in
best
voice
game.
chat, not running into complete degenerates in game, just the sound of meat slipping onto hooks. And then I went online to read up on the game in my spare time. That was my first mistake.
Yep.
See, the toxicity in Dead by Daylight occurs more so offline than anything.
Dude, DBD Twitter is such a cesspool. You know what's funny? Most of the commentary videos I end up coming up with for the YouTube come because somebody just said something so stupid and off the wall on Twitter, and I'm just like, I can't believe that take. I gotta go talk about this. I can't believe somebody said this, and I just go talk about it because DBD Twitter and Reddit's worse, just cesspools.
To discussing the game is rife with the seething anger on all sorts of other things that other people do. This discourse then makes the rounds in the community, and everyone eventually is mirroring it. We most recently saw this with the Skull Merchant, with people divided on whether or not she was a good addition to the game.
I still don't understand this. Like, how did we get so riled up over her? Like, I really don't get it. Oh my god, Chaos is rating me. Yo, Chaos, what is up, friend? How is your stream? How did things go, bud? Oh my god. You were playing Resident Evil? Oh wait, I shouted out Alice instead of you, sorry. Yeah, anyways, what I was saying before the raid. I don't know why we reacted so much to this. Like, whether you love her or hate her, like, it's not a big deal. You know? Like, if she was such an unremarkable chapter, why did people come out in droves and be like, I'm so in love with her, or like, I absolutely detest her? Like, she wasn't worth that energy. And I still don't know where that came from and why we decided to get so uppity about it. It's so strange.
Game. See, there's just something unique about Dead by Daylight that other games just don't have. It's a perfect storm of a few things, as well as many factors. But to summarize them neatly, we can name 3 major things as contributors to Dead by Daylight's toxicity. 1, the ranking system.
Yep.
2, the social climate. And 3, the game by design. These 3 things are the major points that contribute towards the
those being indifferent, as they should have been. They should have been indifferent.
We're going to look
but they
at
overreacted
each one
on both sides.
and then I'm going to tell you how I think we can fix them. But before we get into it, hit the
yeah, because like I thought she was going to be a dead on release character because like before her quality of life changes came through, she was incredibly weak, probably bottom 3 in the game. And then her visual design was not that great. And then obviously she's a full ripoff of the Predator, just straight up. But then like she came out and her quality of life changes were nice, and she had a cool cosmetic that should have been her default, to be honest. And then I actually kind of liked her. But like that was it for me. I'm like, okay, well she's probably gonna be a dud on release. And then I was like, oh, she's not that bad now that there's been some changes. And that was it. That's the end of the conversation in my head, right? But like people got so like uppity about it, like they're like in love with her or detest her, and it's just I don't get it. Like I just don't get it.
Make sure you ring-a-ding the bell and hit the like button if you want to keep seeing Dead by Daylight content just like this. Without further ado, let's ride.
Chapter 1.
This video was not made with the intention of trashing the Dead by Daylight community,
but we'd be fine if you
or
did.
the game devs. I think Behavior has made a very unique experience, even if it's not necessarily a polished one. Additionally, as a Canadian, I do feel a sense of pride that so many people are playing a Canadian-made game. However, it could be better, and that's the purpose of this video. I want to inspire change in a positive direction, so we can keep enjoying this game for years to come. Throughout the duration of this video, I'm going to be pulling examples and source material.
Yeah, you remember when Coldwind was creepy and not just like your peepaw's farm in the evening? Remember when it was actually like moody and terrifying?
I'm going to be pulling examples and source material cited from this study. This is a study conducted by academics from the University of Quebec in Montreal. The behavioral study was conducted using data sets from the game's official subreddit to understand how, why.
Oh no, not the Reddit. The Reddit is, oh no. The Reddit is a cesspool.
And what was considered toxic by the community at large, and what the contributing factors to this toxicity are.
Is that
the study states, the goal of this article is to identify key causes and factors that may lead to toxic in-game interaction, according to players' perception. We studied the Dead by Daylight community using a content analysis of players' conversations on the game's official subreddit to help us better understand how they perceive potential toxic behavior inside the game. Honestly, the study is fascinating, if a little dense, and I absolutely recommend anyone interested in the subject to read it. From this point forward, the study will refer to this study.
Yeah, that's an annoying one.
The first point we're going to explore is the MMR system. The feature has more or less always been around in some form, but previously took the form of ranks. That is, you were matched with players of
that looks so goofy.
rank. Later in the update 5.2.0, skill-based matchmaking was implemented, making ranks obsolete, and instead introducing grades. The difference here, I'm assuming, is that skill-based matchmaking takes your performance into account rather than just a static rank number when creating a lobby. All pretty standard stuff in a multiplayer game. However, unlike many multiplayer games, there is no casual mode to accompany this. There is no unranked playlist, and if you wanted to play a pressure-free game for the sake of enjoying it, you need to have friends, which is already hard for some of us to do, and then play with those friends in a custom game. Fine, I guess, but what if no one's available? Well, there's no casual play, so I guess you're just risking your rank with it, kiddo. Anyway, needing to slot into ranked matchmaking means there's always something on the line. There's always pressure to perform, and thus every match matters. In other games, you can just relax and get matched into an unranked lobby with players who are just messing around. While the lack of a casual mode doesn't mean there aren't casual players, it does mean that there is an inconsistency in experiences. Yeah,
like that's why I call these people that are out there, like that blight that we faced that was, you know, running the best add-ons and tunneling somebody out at 5 gens while playing the second best character in the game. I call it a surprise comp match. I literally call it a surprise comp match because that's kind of what it is, right? Like, whereas like the other matches up until that point, I had, you know, some hard matches and some like good matches. Like, you know, you're just, everybody's in the same match pool. So you may end up with a surprise competitive match where somebody just happens to be playing it. Like, this is the last match of DBD. If they lose this, they have to uninstall, or they lose their kill streak, and they just like, they got to try their heart out. And that's why I call it surprise comp matches, because you're just kind of like in the same pool with like everyone. Whether they're just playing the game casually or they're playing super intensely, like it's a competitive environment, and they're just like together in the same pool, and you just accidentally run into each other, you know? So it's like surprise comp.
Is something that will keep rearing its head in this video, by the way.
I don't even argue that it's worse, right? Because like at least with actual competitive in DBD, they have like restrictions on the things you can run and bring. Well, obviously that's not available in pubs, so people can go a step further, right? So it's even worse than like surprise comp.
So remember it. One game you could be face to face with a face camping Bubba, and the next game you could be faced with a trapper who's just having some light fun with their traps. For new players or players set on a goal, this can add a lot of stress to their game. Now yes, people who are not having fun should stop playing the game. But what good does it do for the community at large if a pissed off player is taking the forums to complain? I feel
like it's one of those things, it's like, if you like, you know, you should just not play. I hate that logic so much, because it's like I get that, like, if you're too frustrated, you should stop. Like, I had like 3 bad games in a row before we moved into like the React today. It's like, the matches just aren't doing it for me anymore. So I'm just like, okay, well, this isn't the most fun, so I'm just gonna move on to the other part of the stream, right? Now that's just like a mature, normal thing to do. But like to say like you should just like not play Dead by Daylight ever again just because it's a flawed game, like, no, you're allowed to be upset at the flaws. You're totally allowed to play the game and still not enjoy certain parts of it and criticize it. Like, I hate that, like, this whole, like, you have to like it fully. It's all in or all out. You have to enjoy Dead by Daylight fully, or else you're just a big whiny baby. I don't like that.
Explored in the study, by the way, with the following excerpt stating, our results reveal that players may define victory in different and ambiguous ways. The situation is more complex than it seems, and the community distinguishes between a range of good victories and playing styles. For instance, some killers consider winning to mean killing all survivors, or 4 kills, while others consider 2 kills and resource collection enough to win. Some survivors consider themselves to have won only if the whole team escapes, while others want to complete certain tasks beyond their main goal in order to improve their avatar's stats. This concept is why the unwritten rules of Dead by Daylight exist, by the way. And in case you're wondering what those are, this is a list of valid play strategies that are highly frowned upon by the other side. Much the same way that sitting in a corner in Call of Duty is frustrating for your enemies, camping a hook or tunneling a survivor out of the game is the same. Likewise, using flashlights as a group to blind killers is also frowned upon, despite being a perfectly valid strategy. The variance involved in having everyone use one single matchmaking queue means that you'll always come across players that, through no fault of your own, are upset that you did a thing. If this sounds like it's not a fun time, that's because it isn't. No one wants to play a game to get told to KYS or neck themselves, which does happen in endgame chat more frequently than you'd like to believe. The study even touches on the concept of unwritten rules.
I really don't get. I haven't had that in so long. I really don't actually see that, which is weird. Like, I have people being like whiny babies, like complaining a lot, but I don't really actually see like a whole lot of like actual threats or slurs or anything like that. Like things that are actually serious. It's always just somebody being a little crybaby. I never see anything of the serious variety, like ever. I literally couldn't tell you the last time and I play this game almost every day. I can't remember the last time I actually had somebody say something awful. I literally couldn't. I don't remember the last time.
Based on our analysis of posts collected on the subreddit Understudy, it appears that behaviors judged as most toxic inside of the game are, in alphabetical order, blinding, body blocking, face camping, hatch camping, lobby dodging, rush unhooking, sandbagging, slugging, text chatting, and teabagging. Now, an addition of a casual play queue won't solve the
I always find it funny that body blocking is toxic, because it's like, it's just the right play, question mark, right? Like, it's just the smart play to body block for somebody who's injured. Like, it's just the correct play. Like, how is that? I've never understood how that's toxic. Same thing with like slugging on the other side. I feel like bleeding people out for like 4 minutes instead of hooking them. Like, you can call that toxic because that's just like holding the game hostage. But like slugging is just often the right play if people are just together. Same thing with body blocking. If somebody's injured and right next to you and you're full health, there's no reason to not take that hit. It's just the better play. If you down somebody and there's somebody injured nearby, just slug. Get the other guy down. It's extra pressure. Why not? Like, I don't get how these things are toxic. Like, what?
Problem. In fact, it might even be a breeding ground for more toxicity, since this is ingrained in the game itself, and there's nothing to lose in a casual.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it. Is like in a micro way, it's not like personal, right? But in a macro way, that's where a lot of this manifests. Because, like, you know, if somebody says all killers are like this, or all survivors are like this, and you're like a survivor main or a killer main, you're going to take that, you know, like personally, right? And I've been in that situation. Obviously, I give my takes about the game all the time, right? I'm like, that's constantly what I'm doing. It's like my content. That's what I do. I just give takes about the game, and we have little roundtable discussions about like the game. And we're talking about toxicity right now, for example, right? And there's plenty of takes I have about the game that, like, quote unquote, you know, people can perceive as targeting them. They can perceive it as I am being targeted. And it's like, no, if I say if you run triple slowdown in a funny perk, you may not be the best in the game, I still have that opinion. If you're one of those people that does that, you always run triple slowdown and you run one funny perk, I'm still, like, that counts as you, right? like if you do that, I suspect you may not be as good as the game as you think you are. So even if you say, like, if you say it as more as a general sense, where you're not trying to make somebody's personal feelings hurt, somebody's like, wait, I run 3 slowdown and a funny perk. He thinks I'm bad, which, you know, I do. But, like, that's not a big deal, right? Like, I'm not trying to, like, actually, like, make you feel bad as a person. I just think you're kind of, you know, try taking off this perks and see if you can do the same thing. And if you can't, I got bad news for you, right? Did you hear corrupt as a slowdown perk? 100%. Yeah, 100%. Wait, is that even a question? Of course it is. As a matter of fact, it was like the fairest slowdown perk for the longest time, and people still bring it. People still like it. Yeah, corrupt. The only function corrupt has is to slow down the gens. It's not like other perks where it's like, you know, it does affect gens or it does affect healing, but it mostly has this other effect. No, the only thing corrupt does is slow down the gens, and then it goes away. Not everyone considers it a slowdown? Really? I've never ever heard that take. The only thing corrupt does is slow down the gens. What is the opposing take? Like, there's different, like, types of gen slowdown, like gen regression versus gen blocking. There's that conversation. But, like, it's definitely a slowdown, because that's literally all it does, is it slows down the gens. It doesn't have an alternative use. It doesn't do anything else. So, yeah, it's definitely a slowdown. Yeah, like I was saying, it's like, people make general sweeping statements of this type of player, this type of, character, and like that, if people can take that seriously, right? They can take that personally. Even if it's not meant to be, they can take that personally.
However, in tandem with the other steps Dead by Daylight can take, it can make things just a little bit better, and ultimately, I think that's enough of a reason to act on it.
Social climate?
Now, what you're about to hear might be a little bit controversial of me to say, but I believe that it is imperative to explaining the rampant toxicity in Dead by Daylight.
Imperative.
Are you ready? There's nothing to do. Okay, so you might be thinking that isn't true. You can do generators as a survivor and killer is a game of hunting survivors.
No, I agree with this. Like, this is why I get so like tilted when there's a match that lasts like 20 plus minutes, because Dead by Daylight is a simple party game at its heart. So there's really no mechanical depth that really extends to any significant amount. Like, you get like Billy's doing crazy techs, you get like Wesker's doing crazy techs, you get stuff like that, like the blind J flicking and weird stuff that used to exist. But like, by and large, the stuff you do in DBD is not very complicated. So it's not really fruitful enough of an experience for a match to last 20 plus minutes, much less the 32-minute match I had with the Skull Merchant the other day on the game. Like, the game is just not, it's too simple for it to retain interest for 20 plus minutes. Like, it's just not. So, like, that's just not good for the health of the game. But, like, also, it comes with this conversation too of like, yeah, the game is incredibly simple. So there's not like a whole lot you can, do about a lot of things.
Yeah, that's the issue. Objectively, the worst part of the game is sitting at a generator and hitting QTEs for 90 seconds to fill a bar.
Yeah, it's nothing. It's boring.
Multiply that by 5 times, and hopefully you begin to see my point. See, the core game experience for survivors is so unbelievably bare bones that often it's way more fun to get into chases with killers. By the time the novelty of a chase wears off, many begin to learn more advanced techniques for chases, like looping and flashlight use, and aggressive perks like head-on. To put this into perspective, the core objective for survivors has not changed in 7 years of the game being online. Hell, I played Survivor for a total of 3 months and I was unbelievably bored with the role. Imagine what people who have been playing for 6 years feel like. Add in the fact that there isn't even the
what? They're quitting. They're quitting. They're quitting the game is what they're doing. They're not playing anymore. They're gone. That shit is better. Yeah, they can just keep that and speed it up. I'd be cool with that.
Of meeting and talking to new people in matchmaking, and it's not even passable as a social experience. So when you've already done a thing that isn't particularly challenging or even scary after a while, no doubt you're going to look for other ways to have fun.
Oh god.
Unfortunately for killers,
what is happening?
That just happens to be the things they consider toxic. Again, the study touches on this, saying Dead by Daylight becomes repetitive for those who play a lot, regardless of roles played, which can lead to boredom. Players thus start seeking pleasure and increased interaction with their opponents or partners in other ways. Players thus reinvent their own ways of playing or even create role reversal situations. If it seems like I'm picking on survivors, I promise I'm not. It's a self-sustaining loop of toxicity, and even if it might start with bored survivors, it definitely isn't entirely their fault. Rather, what I mean is that killers and survivors are toxic in different ways. The study puts it perfectly with this excerpt. We notice that both survivors and killers can display allegedly toxic behavior. Killers' toxic behavior is mostly passive. It is considered toxic when they stop moving, or when they immobilize a survivor. In acting this way, killers seem to seek revenge for actions they deem illegitimate on the survivor's part, which can feed the toxicity loop. I
don't know if I agree with that. There is definitely like we've had, like, I feel like in most of your matches nowadays, like, somebody decides to a lot just like hard tunnel at 5 gens for like no reason. Like, no reason. There's no, like, they're not behind, they're not like nobody did anything toxic. They're just like, okay, surprise comp match. Hopefully you enjoy your 3v1 forehead. Like, out the gate. And that is a very active decision. That is a very, like, I'm playing in pubs. They may not be prepared to play like a 3v1 experience like a comp squad might. So I'm just going to force that on this random group of people and have an easy match because I can make it a 3v1 really quickly. That is a very active decision. That's a very active decision. And there's plenty of other things you can do, like hit on hook and stuff like that. And like bleed people out. There's plenty of active decisions you can make. That's interesting.
Actions that killers deem illegitimate are explained further.
But I do agree with this part. Is like a lot of the things that killers do and engage in terms of like toxicity is like reactionary to like for example, Auron, who's here all the time. Auron will tunnel somebody out because they brought Shadow Step or Distortion. Like if he finds out somebody has Shadow Step or Distortion because they hate those perks, they'll just tunnel somebody out for it. Like the perfect example right there.
Stating, for survivors, toxicity is witnessed in their active behavior, such as attacking or mocking instead of hiding or fleeing away from the killer. While we would expect survivors to run away from the killer because they are vulnerable and because of the context of the game says so, survivors may be perceived as toxic when they harass or run after the killer. Such behavior is most often witnessed in expert players who set new objectives for themselves that go against the intentions of Dead by Daylight's developers. Things like chasing the killer, double sliding pallets, pointing and waving, teabagging at exit,
okay, those first two
are all considered toxic by killers nearly universally. There
really?
isn't a single time that I see any of
what? Okay, let me.
Like
am I missing something?
The killer, double sliding pallets,
double vaulting a pallet is now toxic? Universally seen as toxic. What? Huh? Is that true? Have I missed something? Always was? What? It's just a stupid thing to do. How is that toxic? This is 4 days ago. I missed that memo. I did too. I've never looked at somebody double vaulting like, you're so toxic. You're so terrible. Like, I've never thought that. What? Whoa. Okay. No, neither has anybody in chat seen somebody do that on my screen and go, yeah, they're being toxic right now. I've avoided that for almost 3 whole years of playing this game. Wow. That's crazy.
Pointing and waving, teabagging at exit, flashlight clicking are all considered toxic by killers nearly universally. There isn't a single time that I see any of these things that I think, aw, they're trying to communicate. These things go against the intentions of behavior and how they've developed Dead by Daylight and are all generally meant to say, you're trash. So in retaliation, many killers will engage in toxic behavior of their own. This includes hook camping, face camping, tunneling someone until they are dead, body blocking, basement camping, etc. Generally, killer toxicity is reactive, although it's not unheard of for them to be toxic out of the gate. However, due to lack of comms between teams in pre-game lobby, there's no way to gauge what survivors want out of the match. There's also no way to gauge if your survivors are just having fun goofing off or if they're purposely trying to upset you. As a killer, you can only assume those two things are one and the same. And
I can tell. What? I can tell. If the match loads up, they all have toolboxes and there's like 2 putrid oaks or 2 petrified oaks in the load up of the offerings, and then they're just only going for sabo plays and forcing me to drop all the time. Like, I can tell they're not trying to win and they're just trying to annoy me. I can tell if I down one person and 3 gens fly off the shelf immediately that they're not interested in looping or playing the game. They just want to slam gens and leave. Versus like somebody who like literally goes out of their way to like, loop with me and like, try to send me to like a pallet heavy map or a good map. Like, I can tell. You can't really tell all the time. Yeah, not all the time. I don't think I ever said you can't tell all the time. But I can generally tell most matches kind of like the general, like, the general idea of like what the mood and the feel of the game is. What? That's okay. I mean, like, just the lobby? I mean, you kind of can, right? I mean, if it's 4 survivors, no items, yeah. If you see a lobby where there's a lot of toolboxes, either a lot of saboing or a lot of gen rushing is going to happen. A lot of med kits means it's probably going to be a sweatier game because people are just going to stay healed up very much. Can't use split pressure as an option. Vice versa, if you see like a map or a key, I know that they're just messing around, right? Like if I see a map or a key, I'm like, okay, they're probably just doing a challenge or something, right? But yeah, I don't think it's like he's saying like it's not, you basically can't tell, which I think is like, I don't think that's the case.
And so the survivors end up getting upset, believing they've been treated unfairly, and killers end up mad at survivors for being bullies, and it just goes on and on and on and on. It's a never-ending, self-feeding loop of toxicity, and it's literally just in how the game plays. Any sort of this one-sided toxicity is also compounded by the fact that players will stick to one of the two roles almost exclusively. The study states confinement to one of the two roles contributes to the trivialization of toxicity, which is perceived as self-defense against one's opponent, especially when one believes that their actions are harmless because they—
This is why I don't answer a lot of comments on YouTube. This, like, I would be way more, like, I answer like some here and there, but this is like the main reason I'm not very active in my YouTube comments, because I'm just like, I'm tired of hearing you go be like, I'm a survivor main and I know everything. I'm a killer main and I know everything. Like, I'm tired of people just like bias spouting like all the time. It's so boring and stupid. Like, just like no cognitive awareness of like, I am biased and the things I'm saying are not inherently good for the game and only good for my side. I'm like, I don't listen to you anymore. Like, I just don't. Like, if you're wearing your bias in your sleeve, I turn my brain off. I don't listen to you anymore because you're being irrational, right? I'm killer main versus the bots. There you go. There you go. There you go. Yeah, exactly. We were talking about that at the beginning of this match. This is the beginning of this video. Toto is like, it's not nearly as bad as like other games where there's like real toxicity. If I say I'm a survivor main, it's just killer bots. Well, that's what you should be doing. You should be at the very least paying attention to how the game is played as a whole and trying to get a full picture of how the game is at all times, so you can suggest the best possible things for the game's health. Period. Even if you don't have to play the other role, but like at least watch the role or like have some empathy, right, from the other side, right? That way, the things you're saying, the suggestions you make, if behavior so decides to take them into account, do inherently help the state of the game instead of just like benefiting one side specifically, right? That's ideally how things should be. But I get so tired of just like fighting with people to try to convince them to come down out of their bias, and I'm like, I get tired of it after a while. I'm just gonna like, stay in my lane then. Like, I'm not your dad, not your parents, not your grandparents, not your guardian, whatever your guardian happens to be. I'm not gonna just sit here and try to be like, okay, little buddy, stop being a biased little whiny killer main, or stop being a biased little entitled survivor main. I'm not your parent. It's not my job to do that. It's not my job. You're a big boy. You're an adult. You can figure it out. You can stop being a little whiny baby whenever you want. It's not my responsibility. You should know better at this point. If you choose not to, that's not my problem. Really not. It's just not my problem. So if you whether that's Twitch, YouTube, wherever, if you come in being like, here's my bias, I'm like, okay, who cares? All right, I haven't heard this for the last like 4 years of me, like what, 3 or 4 years of me playing this game. I haven't heard that for years and years. Wow, look, a biased killer main. Oh, look, an entitled survivor main. I bet I can tell what they're gonna say. Like, I can only take so much of that. If you're only survivor biased, you're only killer biased, you're not doing anything new or interesting. People like you've been around for years, and your takes are all the same. So don't be surprised if people don't listen to you.
They cannot see how they may negatively impact others. As long as Dead by Daylight has no effective way for players to communicate with one another, either in-game, post-game, or pre-game, empathy will always be in short supply for the opposing team. I said empathy, yeah. Another thing I would like to touch on in this section is just how much of Dead by Daylight's video content is based on using toxicity to have a good time. Remember that point about expert players setting alternative goals? It rears its head again when we look at YouTube builds. Let's run an experiment. I'm going to type toxic Dead by Daylight in the YouTube search bar, and let's see just how many suggestions we get and what kind of suggestions we get. Now let's do something unrelated and search for Dead by Daylight build. The fact that builds are being advertised by their ability to annoy the opposing team into disconnecting only helps feed this idea of toxicity being fun. While content creators absolutely do exacerbate these issues, they are not the root cause of the issue. This is just how the Dead by Daylight community is. It's built into the game. So
what was I saying earlier today? What was I saying? I was literally saying this earlier today. For a certain group of people that are into this game, they're into it because they can't hack it in real life in terms of like actual competitive environments and other games. And sometimes they can't even hack it in competitive in this game itself either. So they actually thrive on and enjoy the fact that they can just completely pump stop people with zero skill. Whether that be by bringing in a BNP hyper-focused toolbox and just blasting out the killer. Whether it be by slapping on a quad slowdown as killer and just like 3-genning and holding a 3-gen for 30 minutes. Like, these things don't take skill. They really don't. It doesn't take skill to hold a 3-gen with Knight. Especially if you brought the right perks. It really isn't. And it also doesn't take skill to bring a BNP and sit there on a gen with like 3 gen rush perks and just be like, la 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 la. It's easy. But you get the dub, and it makes you feel good, right? So that's what gets advertised all up and down YouTube and stuff, is like, hey, you don't even have to be good at the game. As long as you run this stuff, you can just pub stomp all day, and it's super fun and cool. You know? And that's, like, unfortunately an appeal of this game, is that, like, you don't have to be good. The asymmetry of the game will help you. The inbounds of the game will help you. 30-second jailer guarding the gen. Good lord. That sounds so nasty. Yeah. That's unfortunately the appeal of the game, is I don't have to try and I can pump stomp. Because I can just manipulate the asymmetry of the game to support me. Don't have to be good.
How do we fix this? How do we fix this vicious cycle of toxicity? This Ouroboros.
Ouroboros.
Well, the big theme here so far has been a
complete global saturation.
Lack of communication. I wholeheartedly believe that voice chat in Dead by Daylight would solve a large portion of the game.
Yes. Hens literally like that video is one of the single-handedly most distressing and problematic videos that have been released after 6.1 patch went through. Because since Night came out and that video came out, everybody was over Bran an old eruption every single night that I played. I ran against maybe one night in that entire time before Eruption got nerfed that was not playing the way that Hens video was. Whether they succeeded or they lost, they were all playing almost exactly like that Hens video to try to hold the match hostage as long as possible. And people are still doing that. They're doing it with Skull Merchant now. Sends you to a multi-floored map with triple quad slowdown and put the drones over the gens. People are still doing that. People are still inspired by that video to do that strat. That video has been so detrimental for the health of Dead by Daylight. It really has. It really has. I'm not saying that, I'm not making a stance here of you shouldn't make that video or you should make that video. But what I'm saying is just objectively, that video and the strategy that it popularized has done so much damage to the health of the game. It really has. It has made so many matches extremely long and extremely boring. Extremely long and extremely boring. So take with that what you will.
Cultural and balancing problems. However, I want to make clear that this voice chat should be optional, on by default, but you have the option to turn it off if you want. There is literally no good reason in 2023 to not have this feature in any multiplayer
voice
game
chat
ever made whatsoever. Any arguments against these features at this point is just cope, and I will not hear any of them because they frequently make no sense. There are so many problems solved by the introduction of a voice chat that it is asinine to not add it at this point. However,
well, that's kind of what the HUD does. That's what the HUD's there for, right? Yeah, that's what the HUD's for. That's why they introduced the HUD thing. The HUD does essentially what voice chat would do, minus a little bit extra, right? I'm on my way to go do this, right? I feel like they actually kind of recently solved that by putting in the HUD system, right? I don't think you need it because of the HUD system, and the HUD system gives you that information anyway. Yeah, and just for a personal reason, I don't want people dude, I play Siege all the time. I don't want I like being able to go into DBD and not get yelled at by a bunch of random teenagers all the time. Even though the main demographic for DBD is I think 21 to 34, so they're mostly adults. I don't want to get yelled at by people all the time. I really don't. So I already have all the info I need on the left side of the screen while playing Survivor, and I don't get to get yelled at. So yeah, those are my reasons. So you will hear them, actually. I don't know why you're I will not hear anything against it. It's it's a little weird. It's not being very open.
However, it might not even matter in the end, since the toxicity in the game is pretty much inbuilt to the experience.
Yeah, like.
So what do I mean when I say it's built into the experience? Well, the game is asymmetrical. It's not fair, and it isn't meant to be fair either. From the very onset, the cards are stacked against you, no matter what role you play. Survivors are at the mercy of killers in many ways, but killers only have themselves to rely on, and well-coordinated survivors can easily distract a killer and waste their time. Survivors cannot eliminate an annoying or unfair killer. They can only disconnect and incur a penalty, and because there's only a ranked mode and no casual play, this is always a detriment. Likewise, killers are at the mercy of survivors. If survivors are running the killer and bullying an obviously new player, there is little that the killer can do aside from disconnect and lose their blood points and rank placement. Honestly, there isn't much else I can add to this section.
But don't do that. You signed a social contract to play the video game to its finish by loading up into the match. It's very important that you uphold the integrity of Dead by Daylight by never DCing ever, because if you do, you're inherently a bad person. Sorry. I don't know what came over me.
Without beating a dead horse at this point. This is probably the most obvious portion of the video anyway, so this begs the question, how do we fix it? Well, we can. The game is designed the way the game is designed, the way the game is designed, the way the game is designed. Behavior won't even fix their spaghetti code that leads to something breaking nearly every update. There is absolutely no chance they would change the way the core game experience works. As long as they keep making money from chapter releases and cosmetics.
Are you sorry that's not really passionate? Yeah, the capo was implied. The capo was implied, okay? I think the capo was implied by, like, the way I was, like, shoving the mic into my mouth, you know? I think the capo was implied, but there was a capo there.
For them to do anything about the game design. For 7 years now, the game has been in what is essentially an extended early access state, lacking critical features like accessibility options, such as brightness, gamma, and
not like DCing decks, but like having the team be able, like, mid-match to like be like, hey, can we give up, right? Can we give up, right? Like, can we call for a surrender? That's something you can do in other games where, like, if somebody DCs early, like, there's no reason to play out the match. So you can just, like, you know, surrender, like, right away, instead of having to eat a penalty just so you can move on, because the match is a waste of time, essentially. Like, other games, plenty of other games in modern times have that. It's just weird that DBD doesn't.
The argument against having these options is ludicrous, since
why would they have a leave button? Dude, homie, you're not understanding. You're not understanding. So there is the ability to DC, to rage quit, to leave a match midway, but that is considered an unfair and bad thing. So you are penalized for that. If you guys choose to surrender, you aren't forced to sit through a penalty. If you guys all agree to surrender, you don't have to sit there through a DC penalty to get back into the pool. Does that make sense? They're not the same. They're not the same thing. One is I'm rage quitting, I'm leaving, and the game will penalize you. The other is the group kind of collectively going, this match isn't worth playing because it's gone so poorly at the beginning that we will just give you the W, and we will be out of this match so we can go back and get more blood points. That would be the difference. Does that make more sense? No point to continue the match. Yeah, like, so many modern games have this as an option. So many modern games have this as an option. It's wild that DBD doesn't. It's really wild that DBD doesn't. If I want to leave the match, I'll leave. Dexter, you're not. Okay. You still have to. Okay. All right. Yeah, you're still in the match. Like, you still have to wait. Like, if a match is not worth playing, you still have to sit there. And that's entirely at the behest of the killer if you're playing the survivor side. Like, you could stand on the hook and they can just ignore you. They just ignore you, right? They could keep you there theoretically as long as they want. You're just at their mercy. So that's not like just a, oh, well, I'll just stand there and it just fixes all my problems. I'll just stand under the hook. See? Easy. No, it's not that easy. The killer can choose to, like, BM or be toxic, like we've been talking about in this video, and just choose not to hook you and just leave you there. So that's not just a I win.
FOV can be an issue for those who experience motion sickness, and PC players who care to use filters are already using brightness filters on the game anyway. Yep. So all that's doing is locking console users out of a feature that PC users have. Not to mention, the core game experience has not changed in 7 years.
I always think it's weird because you can turn up the brightness on your television. You know, like, you don't have the like if you look at like a Reshade, for example. Let's go back to my game. Reshade is way more complicated, right? Shit, what is the thing for that again? What is... There it is. Like Reshade... Hold on, my big head's in the way. Reshade is way more complicated. Way more complicated. Like, you can do, like, there's a lot of sliders that you won't have available on your television, right? A lot of sliders you won't have available on your television. Right? Like, this is how dark the game is, like, kind of naturally. It's like this, right? Well, hold on. Oh, it's really... Wow. Look at that. Look at how washed out the game is without that. That's crazy. Is that your aimbot hacks? No, it's just Reshade. It's just filters. Yeah, like, look at how dark the game is naturally. Like, look at how dark it is. Like you won't have that level of control, you know, even on like a television monitor. But at the same time, like, you do have options. It's not like you are at the behest of, oh, I just have to play the game dark now. Just go mess with your TV settings. Like, go mess with your TV settings. Like, it's not like you're just like at the mercy of you're just at the mercy of, like, oh, PC players have such an advantage on me. I think there's the thing that, like, people have been recently using filters to make the red stain brighter. And I know, I don't, depending on what TV you have, you may be able to do that or not. That is the only thing I would, like, give credence to.
Survivors are still hitting generators, killers are still hitting survivors, and behavior is still hitting our wallets for what should ultimately be a free-to-play live service game. I don't hate Dead by Daylight, but I am frustrated with what it is versus what it could be. It is the very image of complacency in the game industry, and the poster child for toxic gaming almost anywhere you ask. The problem is so deep at this point, it's cultural and integral to the experience. With new asymmetrical horror games coming out soon, such as the Texas Chainsaw Massacre game and Evil Clowns from Outer Space, it's only a matter of time before Dead by Daylight needs to take some sort of concrete step towards expanding the core experience outside of one mode, one playlist, one rotation of maps, and one way to play. While the Steam charts indicate that Dead by Daylight is in a better spot now than it has ever been, it has...
No, it's not. What Steam charts are you looking at? Like, yeah, I mean, like, from when it was, like, a Babu game that just got started, yeah. But ever since its peak of the first Resident Evil chapter, it's fallen dramatically. Yeah, ever since its peak of Resident Evil, it hasn't really regained its popularity since that peak of the Resident Evil chapter. So, yeah, overall, yeah. But, like, in the past couple of years, no.
Has already hit its peak in 2021. Instead of capitalizing on this burst in player count numbers, they continued to release expected content and failed to grow with their audience. So how do we fix the toxicity problem in Dead by Daylight? We can't. Hey guys, thank you so much for watching the video. This is Snail. I just want to say really quickly before you guys click off, please go ahead and leave me a like on the video if you like the video. Subscribe to the channel if you want to see more videos like this. Leave a comment if you think I'm right or I'm wrong. I
feel like, okay, so I think I agree. I feel like I agree because, like, DBD, because of its asymmetrical nature, somebody is always going to be getting the short end of the stick. Someone, somewhere. I feel like the way that DBD would have been, like, not toxic was if it was based, not entirely, but mostly a majority based on skill, right? Like, if they built the game from the ground up to be not a party game, and to have it be more of a, like, okay, well, map seeds are very, very similar, not very, like, different. Like, basically everything that makes Dead by Daylight what it is, its asymmetry, move away from that and make it a more, like, streamlined experience. That way, all these people that, like, want to try and go hard can just try and go hard, and everybody's under the same understanding that you can try and go hard, right? Casual, ranked, whatever, right? Like, the game is a sweat experience, and that's just it, right? Because if there's that understanding and that consistency, I think that's the main word. There's that consistency. You're not being screwed over by maps. You're not being screwed over by perks or gen spawns or specific characters. Things are, for the most part, balanced from the ground up to just kind of be a very, like, static, you know, sweat experience. Everybody comes to the table with the same expectation of sweat. So nobody's like caught off guard by said sweat. Everybody knows it's a sweat game. But that's not what it is. It's an ASIN. From the ground up, it's an ASIN. Which is a good thing, because it's a fun party game. But, like, you know, that's where you have kind of this, like, you know, cognitive dissonance between, like, certain players wanting to treat it like a sweaty, I beat people up experience, and the other people wanting to just play a casual party game where they're having fun with their favorite horror characters. And they just, like, commingle, and it's just bad. Like, it's commingle. They commingle, and it's just bad. And Behavior doesn't know what they want their game to be either, because they were like, yeah, we can just have all this crazy, wacky unbalance. It's fine. And now we're going to introduce skill-based matchmaking, what everybody hates, and not back out on it. And now it's just awful. And it's like, they don't know what they want their game to be. Let's take this. I keep saying this almost every video. I'm sorry you're tired of hearing it. Let's take out the God window from Old Haddonfield and just put it in Garden of Joy. Right? Like, what? There's no consistent philosophy on the way they do things. They just kind of like throw things at a wall and see what it sticks. They don't know what they want their game to be, and I feel like that dissonance, that just lack of concrete idea of what they want the game to be, kind of like reflects in us as a community. Do you want it to be a party game? Do you want it to be a sweaty comp game? What do you want out of this game? And I don't think they know. I think they just kind of, you know, like I said, they just kind of throw it at the wall and go, whatever it is whatever it is. They don't have a clear direction for what they want the game to be. They just kind of like, you know, just autopilot. And I feel like people that are trying to like make sense of the spaghetti, not referencing to the code. I feel like people that are trying to like make sense of it all just like they don't get it. Like they don't get what you're going for. It's like looking at art, right? Like I'm like you're looking at a painting. I'm like, I don't know what you were trying to make me feel out of this. What do you want me to feel? What do you want me to take away from this art piece? And their answer is well, it kind of started as a party game. And then people started sweating, and we started supporting that by giving them really strong perks. And then that made the game kind of sucky, so we introduced skill-based matchmaking and nerfed some perks. But then people found a way to sweat anyway, and now we just don't have the perks to defend themselves. Like, it's just like they just don't know what's happening. Like, they just don't get it. Like, they have no clue what... They're just kind of like... They almost feel like us. Right? They almost feel like they're us, which is weird. They feel like they have as much of a, like, idea of what the game is going to end up being as we do. Which is weird, because they're the ones at the helm of the game. They can make it into whatever they want. They can bring it back to a party game, or they could, you know, keep going down the competitive route, right? But I don't think they know what they want it to be. So they just kind of go, they shrug, and then we're like, shrug. You ever okay, you've probably seen this in the news. I know this is probably like a weird analogy. You ever been in the news? There'd be like a politician talking. And you'd be like, these are my beliefs and these are my thoughts and blah, blah, blah. And somebody asks them like a really oddly specific question. Like, how do you feel about abortion rights? And they're just like, I'll have to talk to my team and see what we think about that. Right? Like that kind of answer. That kind of answer. I feel like that's like Behavior's answer all the time. It's like, oh, well, we'll have to, we have plans and we're working on things. We'll see how it goes. And that's just kind of like where they're at most of the time. It's like a non-answer, right? It's an answer, but it's a non-answer. And I feel like that's kind of, that kind of like lack of concreteness is like where we all start like getting really like, almost said motion sick. Stir crazy. We start getting really stir crazy and start like lashing out at each other and getting like the Lord of the Flies, where they start like all the kids are on the island and they start like eating each other. I don't think they ate each other, but like they start like fighting each other and stuff because they're just stuck on the island and they just like freak out. We're really blowing the DDoS situation. Yeah, they haven't addressed it in 4 years. They even blamed it on Steam, and it's not a Steam problem. So like, cool. It's a problem with your game on Steam, but it's not a Steam vulnerability. But like, they just don't know. I just feel like they just don't know what's going on most of the time with their own game. I feel like they're just kind of like, okay, what's the next chapter? Let's work on the next chapter. Hey, Bob, check on the community. What are they mad about? Eruption? Yeah, we'll nerf that. Okay, what about what about like the 50 perks in the game on each side that just like don't do anything? Yeah, whatever. We'll look at that like I don't know, whenever we get to it, you know? But it feels like they just have no, like, set direction, and because of that, we also don't feel like we're on a set path. So we started, like, trying to, like, you know, kind of, like, self-domineer that ourselves, right? Because it, like, if the game says, like, hey, if you could just set up a 3-gen with 4 slowdown and win the game for free, right? Like, why not do it, right? And I can sit on my soapbox and be like, hey, this is a party game. Stop sweating so hard. Go play competitive. They don't have to. And behavior's not going to step in, right? Behavior's not going to say or do anything about that, right? They're just going to sit and watch they just sit in the popcorn and they're just like, wow, that's interesting. You know, like they're not gonna step in and make a clear like design philosophy for their game. They're just like, it's whatever you want it to be. Yep. Yeah, it's up to you. Have fun. So I don't know. I think that's kind of like DBD's main issue. I don't think behavior knows what they want the game to be, and as a result, we try to just listen to what the game seems to be trying to be, and it's giving mixed messages, and we keep attaching ourselves to mixed messages that are both inherently true. Yeah, if you release Knight and Skull Merchant back to back, and they both can inherently hold a 3-gen really well with a bunch of slowdown perks, you kind of get the feeling that behavior's cool with that, right? You know, like it's like what they're telling you without telling you. It's like, yeah, this is a thing that we want in the game. But like based on our previous experiences with like the whole asymmetry and balance thing is like, no, this game is too wacky to be taken that seriously. There's too much that could go right and wrong just with the natural asymmetry of the game itself. So no, there shouldn't be something that super outlierly strong like that. But and that's also true, right? Because you know, things that they have said and done before indicate that as well. They're both true. So both sides are just like, hey, you both of these are true. What's right? And the behavior's just like, maybe both. I don't know. I'm just gonna. Would you like more shirtless skins? Would you like another chapter that's kind of meh? You know, like they're supposed to be guiding us here. They're just like, hey, whatever. Yeah, like looping was even that's the most infamous thing. Is like the main way to play the game as Survivor, which is looping, was not intended. They didn't. That wasn't by design. That just kind of happened. Not wild. Clearly, case me point. Clearly. And that's why it's so funny when I see like a Fog Whisperer get up on their high horse and they'll be like, "Well, do you guys make video games, huh? Yeah. Why do you know better than the devs about like what's best for Dead by Daylight? You're not behavior. You don't work on the game." It's like, bro, the main way to play the game wasn't even made by design. Like the main way survivors play the game was not made by design. That just kind of happened. That if they had their way, people would literally only be sitting on back then 80-second gens and just doing this and hiding in lockers, hiding in corners, and then getting back. It would essentially be a mobile game. So that's why we say stuff like that. Because like, imagine that world where there's only immersion and then 80-second gens. Imagine that. There's only the gen doing and hiding, and that's all the game is. It's just like, yeah, that's why we say stuff like that. That's why people kind of get that inclination that, you know, they can suggest things to behavior because the main component of Survivor gameplay was not intended. Just thinking about all of that, thinking about just like the spaghetti, not only in the code, but just in like the way they make the game and how things just happen that they're not like, I feel like, you know what? I talked about this once. Is that like I'm always so happy to see Kote doing his thing out there, doing in interviews, because he's so proud of his game, and you can tell like he's really proud of his baby. Like DBD is his baby, and he loves it. You can tell he's about it. It kind of feels like, at a certain extent, that it's like a parent that like kind of like, you know, was a good parent in some ways, but in a lot of ways they really sucked and they were an absentee parent. But they're like, oh, my son turned out all right. You know, it kind of feels like it, right? It's like, he turned out all right. See, like, I'm a good parent. And if you, like, you know, the kids go into therapy, like, yeah, my dad wasn't really around. I kind of had to, like, make a lot of ends meet by myself. I kind of am a self-made man. but his dad's like, yeah, my son turned out pretty okay. You know, it kind of gives that energy sometimes. And it's like, it's a little weird. It's a little weird. It's a little strange. But it's kind of funny at the same time. At least I can get a kick out of it to some extent. We can laugh and giggle and all that stuff. It's the dad that came back with the milk. Yeah, there you go. He came back. Oh my god, yeah.